Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here at the Priestess View. I'm Goddess Rhonda, and we have with us, of course, our beautiful Goddess Star.
Everyone, welcome, merry meet.
And we are so happy to have with us Witchdoctor Utu. He's in the house with us tonight, and he's going to regale us with all kinds of wisdom and knowledge. But as always, before we begin, we'd like to cast a circle of protection around us. All hail, our lords and ladies of the East, our brothers and sisters. Our brother and patron, the sacred element of air, namaste. Divine honor, love, joy, peace, and respect to thee. I charge thee, please cause a barrier of protection through all of our walls that face your direction, from corner to corner and end to end. Let peace and protection reign herein. Thank you, and so it is.
So mote it be.
So mote it be.
Oops. I am so sorry. I had it all lit and then the wick came out on the bottom, so I'm going to do this. I'm so sorry.
No problem.
All hail, our lords and ladies of the South, my brothers and sisters, my brother and patron, the sacred element of fire. Namaste, divine honor, love, joy, peace, and respect to thee. I charge thee, please cause a barrier of protection through all of our walls and that face your direction, from corner to corner and end to end. Let peace and protection reign herein. Thank you, and so it is. So mote it be.
So it is, so mote it be. All hail, our lords and ladies of the West, our brothers and sisters, our sister and patron, the sacred element of water, namaste. Divine honor, love, joy, peace, and respect to thee. I charge thee, please cause a barrier of protection through all of our walls that face your direction, from corner to corner and end to end. Let peace and protection reign herein. Thank you, and so it is.
So mote it be. All hail, our lords and ladies of the North, my brother and sisters, my sister and patron, the element, sacred element of earth. Namaste. Divine honor, love, joy, peace, and respect to thee. I charge you, please cause a barrier of protection through all of our walls that face your direction, from corner to corner and end to end. Let peace and protection reign herein. Thank you, and so it is. So mote it be.
So it is, so mote it be. And we now bring down the divine white light from the sacred source of all well-being and fill all of our spaces with peace and protection always. So it is. And thank you.
So mote it be.
Okay, everybody, we are back at the Priestess View, which is brought to you by Charmed by Star and Ajua Metaphysical and Henna Artist Services. Again, I'm Goddess Rhonda with Goddess Star.
Hi, everyone, again.
And we are so glad you could join us. Again, we are so pleased to have Witchdoctor Utu in the house with us tonight. He is the founder of the world-renowned Dragon Ritual Drummers, the Niagara Voodoo Shrine, and is a drummer for the New Orleans Voodoo Spiritual Temple.
For 15 years, he has been leading the way in spiritual work to honor Harriet Tubman and the spirits of the Underground Railroad, residing in the town of St. Catharines, Ontario, where Mama Moses brought her track of the UGRR to its end. He has been immersed in the various forms of conjure and root work associated with the legacy of the historic and clandestine movement that brought tens of thousands of freedom seekers to the north, east of the US and Canada. Many were legendary conjurers, healers, and diviners. Wow, that's so awesome.
That is so awesome. So please, Utu, tell us about your early background.
Well, my early background, I guess I'll just start, in my early 20s, because I guess that's where it kind of counts as far as my spiritual path. And before I get started, I do want to say, from up here in Canada, happy Martin Luther King Day to you ladies.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, so my background was, I was raised very eclectic by my mother. She was very much, I'm in my late 40s, so she was one of those people, like I was born in Scotland, we came to live in Canada, and she immediately was the type of person who was kind of immersed in the counterculture, you know, the sort of free thinking crowds of North America. So I was raised very eclectic. I saw a lot of life on communes, communal living. I traveled with her to South America. We spent times in the Andes with Indians. And so early on, I kind of had a different view of religion and spirituality. You know, it came at me in very different angles from just travel with my mother. But in my 20s, for sure, my early 20s, I began to enamor a lot more with the neo-pagan, the Native American. You know, I could almost say at that point in time it was more New Age, but just looking for something a bit deeper to connect with on my own right. And eventually stumbled upon a functioning coven of people that practice the Sumerian tradition, you know, from ancient Iraq, the Mesopotamian tradition, and well, we're centered out of Texas, but some of them were living here in St. Catherine. Once I dove into that tradition, I spent a good over 10 years obtaining clergy in it, and in that time, spent huge swaths of time in Texas. All the folks from that tradition would come up to Canada, and we'd all stay at each other's homes, and we had a really interesting thing going for quite a long time.
Wow. And
so that's how I stumbled into the, you know, connectedness of the neo-pagan movement, you know, within the early 90s.
Fascinating.
Yeah. I know you said that you started in, you know, your spiritual path in the 20s, in your 20s, but did you come out of the closet around that same time, or did it take you some time?
I was lucky. My family was very open, so they knew what I was up to right away, as did a lot of my closer friends, because a lot of people that knew me already knew I was kind of into, you know, different things, you know,
right.
metaphysical things, and you know, things of the esoteric was always a part of me. But when I started to really dive in, I didn't really have to come out too much because, again, had a good source of friends and family around me that were pretty open and even in some regards came along with me at times for some of these journeys. But I remember a couple of friends, you know, that were not too crazy about it when I finally started to let them know just how immersed in witchcraft I was. That didn't go over well with a couple of folks, but just to be understood. But I've been lucky, you know, from the very get-go. I didn't really have to, you know, really make an announcement of any kind. But up to this day, I mean, you know, depending on where I'm working or what kind of social circles I interact with, it inevitably will come up. And sometimes it's a good thing, and other times, you know, there's a room full of people with horrible faces. So it's one of those things you've always got to, you know, we've always got to continue it, you know, and be prepared.
That's very good. That's very good. You always appreciate that when you can have people that support you, so you can come out earlier in life with it and not be feeling so closed in about it. Because we've met a few people that had to stay closet for a while, and we still know some that has to still stay there, which is kind of sad.
They still have to, just to keep the peace in their family, and you know, that's kind of sad when you can't be yourself all the time, but I understand people have to do whatever it is they have to do in order to survive. So with that eclectic background that you have, what inspired you to voodoo?
Well, you know, throughout my whole from childhood on, I played instruments, you know, was off and on drums and guitar, and when I say drums, I mean a drum kit. But I kind of, again, you know, in my 20s there, I was sort of, you know, also into a lot of world music, exotic music from around the world, different types of drumming started to become interesting to me. And it, luckily, the Sumerian tradition that I belong to, they encouraged drumming for the rituals. And so it was lucky at the time I kind of had a couple of tribal drums kicking around, and so it was that brought me into the drumming in a ritual sense, and having been in that tradition for several years, you know, I became pretty proficient at ritual drumming. And, you know, late 90s, early 2000 era there, started to get invited to supply drumming for various voodoo and Santeria rituals that were nearby me, right into parts of the United States, because there wasn't quite really a huge internet presence yet for a lot of people, so a lot of word-of-mouth phone calls and such. So I sort of assembled a crew of a few guys. Some lived in the States, some lived in Canada, and we began to facilitate when there wasn't the ability for some drummers, for initiated drummers, to be at some of these ceremonies. I started to do those. So that's what really initially drew me into it, because I realized, well, there's another tradition that I can, you know, connect with while I'm drumming, which was really changing me a lot and opening up a lot of doors for me. So that's what brought me into voodoo. And inevitably what it was I was at an event that Priestess Miriam and Louis Martinet from the Voodoo Spiritual Temple were at. And it was in the middle of the woods. And, I came upon their ceremony, and I kind of knew in that moment I was going to be, even though I was very far away from New Orleans, I somehow knew I was going to be connected to these people for a while. And, within a month of that, a couple of members of the temple in New Orleans came up and crashed with me up here in Canada for a while. And I began lots of trips back and forth. And every time Miriam or Louis was doing, facilitating ceremonies somewhere in the United States and Canada at times, they get, flown or travel pay for them to go across the continent, I would hook up with them at the location so I could participate and facilitate with them and help and learn. And up to that, to this day, I've been as much as I can a contributing member to the Voodoo Temple, including going down there after Katrina when people could go back down there, went to help Miriam's house and the temple in itself get it back up and running again. Once people started to come into the city, so I have a big connection with the city and through some of its darkest and some of its best times. And so this, from that moment, that I knew I was, going to be on that path with meeting Priestess Harriet because she was so incredible to me.
Right.
I knew that was where I was supposed to be, and I'm still here. It's been 15 years of being associated with the temple.
Right. That's awesome. That's absolutely beautiful. I had the distinct pleasure of meeting you all at X-Fest, and in July, I believe we were there, right? And yeah, and I'm so glad to have met you guys. And I wanted to just kind of have you tell us a little bit about your dragon ritual drummers and what type of ceremonies you guys do.
Well, yeah, the dragon ritual drummers is it's a very I hate to use the word eclectic, but we pretty much are. All the members of our band all come from the Niagara Pagan Men's Circle that we belong to. So we're part of a men's circle, which is about to celebrate 20 years in March. But we formed out of that. And so the band has existed, the Dragon Ritual Drummers has existed as a fraternal, sort of a tribe since the year 2000, although it took us a while to start to travel, and then it took us even longer to hone down some members. But everybody who's ever played with us has to be a member of the men's circle. So we're not a bunch of professionals where we put out ads or go find the best drummers. Some of the guys that began to drum or tour with us at times were literally learning on the spot, or learning, private lessons and our practices and so on and so forth. So we're connected. Dragon Ritual Drummers were named that because we're connected to one of the Native American horned serpent legacies. And there's quite a few of these giant horned serpents in ancient lore in North America. And some of them are placated to this day, some of them are never supposed to be mentioned, and some of it is really only utilized by people of the Native American past. But there's a couple of areas where we live in Niagara Falls. For the original indigenous tribe, they were massacred. They were wiped out and routed by the Iroquois when the Iroquois nation started to form the Confederacy, and whoever kind of was in the way was assimilated and or routed. And the inhabitants here, the Niagara, which is where Niagara comes from, they used to honor and revere a giant horned serpent, one of these primordial figures.
Oh, wow.
I guess archaic, ancient. The Cherokee still do. The Cherokee Indians still recognize a giant horned serpent called the Pena, which is more associated with the mountains. And he sleeps in a cave, and people approach it to try to gather wisdom. Here in Niagara Falls, with a water serpent that lives behind Niagara Falls, like in a cave. And so when the Iroquois started to form the Confederacy and started to put their new ideology on top of the already existing archaic forms of religion in the Native Americans, because sometimes the Iroquois were called the Romans of the Native Americans because they kind of brought some new order, and they connected the tribe from a very large region. And so they placed their sky god hero slaying a giant horned serpent when they sort of took this area over. So that's kind of the mytho and the mystery that we work with. We worked with that serpent because it wasn't really slayed, it was just sort of banished. But, for quite some time we've been working with it. We named, our band after it. We make music for it. So the ceremonies that we do is sort of a private cult within the Dragon Ritual Drummers because we belong to the men's circle. But that being said, we do have members that are initiated drummers of various African descent traditions or belong to various neo-pagan traditions, and we have been asked to drum for, like I said, everything from Santeria to Voodoo and the Church of Apollo and stuff. Anything we are allowed to be at, where some of us are allowed to be at, we've been invited to. We've also drummed for Native American ceremonies or with them, and have facilitated some Hindu ceremonies, and you name it, we've done it over the years. So our approach is very, very eclectic. But that being said, because of the presence of North America in particular, because that is what we're connected to, is the Voodoo Temple in New Orleans and the Underground Railroad conjure. So that's basically, we're only serving kind of what we're really connected to as a band. And so we're also connected to Royal House of Abuja in Yoruba land, Nigeria, because we do a gungun drumming for one of the princes there when he was living here in Canada for quite some time. So that's where we were moving around, and traditions that are still in existence but still have a sacredness of the drum in its use. We've been lucky enough to be involved in a lot of them.
Right.
Wow. That's awesome.
That is awesome. And, I love the idea of casting spells through drumming. You don't hear much about that, casting spells through the modality of music, even though it's been done, I'm sure, forever. So can you tell, and I know that you also play other instruments as well, which is good, because we have some more questions about that too.
Yeah.
Can you give us an idea if someone wanted to do a drum spell, how would they go about doing that?
Well, yeah, true. Very common for sure to some and uncommon to others, no doubt. For an individual person, if they had a drum available, it is, in my opinion, only going to be that much more powerful if you, for example, have dressed your candle or anointed a particular candle of a particular color at a particular time, and doing whatever a person does with what they know to go, for example, through a prosperity spell. And so, whereas most people would walk away from that spell wherever the altar they set it up on, or their working altar, what I like to do at that moment, if I've invested the time and energy into actually going out of my way to dress candles and light them and meditate and think about what I'm trying to acquire, then I literally, in my house, I'm lucky I have a drum within arm's reach pretty much in every room. So I grab one, and I sit right where I'm doing it, or go into one of the other rooms, and now I start to just play my drum. And just to enhance now, think more about what I just did, because the drum, of course, is just it's such a unique tool that sends instant vibration out into our plane.
Right.
So when you're hitting it, you really are now taking your manifestation or at least the beginning of the manifestation, to the next level, because you're able to put a rhythm to it, which is going to be echoed and heard out, into the plane that we live in, or on the walking. And I also see that when someone's doing that, and if they're drumming, it doesn't have to be any particular rhythm, because not a lot of people are familiar with various rhythms, but if you just find a way that you're hitting the bass and any drum, a native style drum with a stick, or the Celtic drum, of course, or zambe, or congas, or something like that, whatever the person is comfortable with. When you start to do that now, for me, it's powerful because you can start to now think about the spell you just did again. And you start to look at your altar and close your eyes, and then various parts of that altar's energy, whether it be the candle flame or the incense, starts to really stand out. And, it's almost psychedelic in a way. If somebody can close their eyes and really hold the rhythm and go there, you end up now sort of taking your spell a little higher by yourself, with the beat of the drum carrying you up, carrying you down through whatever way it is you look at it. And I find it can be very effective to enhance any particular ritual or any particular spell in particular. It just makes it that much more powerful, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Even as you were saying that, I could just feel like all of this energy as you were discussing. I was talking about how to kind of put it all together, and it was just such a powerful energy that I have a couple of drums actually that I'm going to start. I think I'm going to go ahead and start doing that as well, because I love that idea, especially the idea of the drumming is really, really cool.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too because with our temple, we tend to use the drums and stuff a lot. Like at least try to get someone there with that drum going and everything. Because when we were there at Hex Fest and you guys were drumming, the energies and the I don't know, everything just came together, and it was such a beautiful time of energies. So I could just imagine, you doing this at home and what we can add to it and everything with all of our energies and the drumming, and it just takes you there. With that in mind, one of the first things I am sure everyone asks you about is, I know they ask about love, but money is the top of the list. So, or prosperity. It is. Everybody and their dog is like, please show me the money, kind of a thing. So, if someone wanted to do a prosperity spell while drumming, how would they do that? How would they go about that? I mean, you mentioned it for one thing, but is there anything extra oomph with, whatever it is that you can think of?
Oh no, if they go into a prosperity spell, let's just again say it's going to have a candle involved with some oils and incense and such. If they know they're going to drum ahead of time, then it's good to sort of hold the drum for a little while, even before you begin the spell in general, just to sort of get familiar with it and think about it. Because we ritual drummers, we feed our drum, regularly, which means that a drum, especially a zombie, if you think about it, the part we hit, that's the head. That's the head of the being, and then the rest of the drum is the body. And then at the bottom, where the sound comes out, is the mouth. And so it has a body in a sense. And we lay them down, and where the mouth comes out, we leave offerings there. Sometimes spray essence from our mouth to that drum's mouth. We'll rub dirt on the head of the drum from side and place our heads on the ground with the drum for a bit to meditate, connect with it. And then the person goes out of their way to make the spell, set it up. And then I would say that the only thing they should try to do is to not worry about the rhythm they're playing. And that's why sometimes the native or the Celtic style drum can be effective, because you just have to hit it in the middle.
Right.
That being said, I've done it very simply with congas or djembes, just focused on the middle of the drum where that big bass tone comes out that resonates. The person just needs to keep something going over and over again. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to sound good. It just has to be vibration and sound. And again, when somebody closes their eyes and thinks about it, they close their eyes and think about the spell they just did, and then try to connect with their visualization, with their altar, again, see what stands out or just the energy in general. And then as they're doing it, to continue to just put out their desire that they just channel for farther out into the universe, and with a bit more kick. And just let it. And when they're done, to just sort of slowly stop, and then open their eyes, put it down, and then by the time you walk away from any spell, and say, okay, so more to be.
Wow.
Oh, that is so cool. As you were talking about that, I had a vision of creating a rattle for money and using coins as inside of it to rattle it, to do that kind of a prosperity spell with rattles or maracas with coins inside.
That'd be very cool, actually, yeah.
And, with that in mind, do you actually need a drum, or can I drum on my desk? Or, because not everybody has drums, and some of those drums can be kind of costly. So can they just drum on a box, a desk, or anything that can make noise if you're banging on it?
Well, I definitely know a lot of people, and I've done it too. I've drummed on a desk or two at work or school, and or just steering wheel of a car. A lot of people would do that too, and the time is right. Well, you can drum on anything. Sometimes that's more like a location-specific thing. So if somebody is at work and they feel like they want to tap their fingers, or they've got something in mind that they want to do every day, and I think that's very powerful and very, very workable. Nothing beats a drum, though, because it does a different sound, different vibration.
Right.
And so while drums are pretty costly, some of them absolutely, for the average person who just wants to incorporate a little bit of drumming to some of their spell work, there are some very cheap drums available in most stores. Most music stores will carry a very low line of, they're called Indonesian djembes. They're the type of African drum from West Africa that are made in Indonesia, but they're really cheap. And a lot of times people will just assume, oh, that thing is just decoration. It's some sort of like decorative piece, because it can be quite between a real size, they're effective. They work. And if somebody's not about to play a concert with them and or lives in an apartment or a small house or something, then it's perfect. And those things can be like $40, $50, $60 tops to get one of those little like low grade, little jambe looking things that are functionable for spell work. And in fact, the amount of drums I have in my house, quite often, if I'm going to do a spell in my home and I'm going to drum along to it, I choose mostly one of the quieter drums that I have, one of the smaller drums that I can't take out to rituals or play in rituals when other people are here or take a concert because they're too quiet, they're too fragile, they're covered in fur, but those are the ones to me that actually spell work. Less is more, and you can sometimes get a lot of interesting nuance when you're just tapping with your fingers on a little drums, as opposed to somebody having to sit there and hit it really hard with both arms and stuff. Small, quiet drums are actually can be the most effective and the most powerful for spell work.
Oh wow, that's good to know for sure.
Yeah. Wow, that is really amazing. And if are there any specific or certain rhythms that you can use for particular energies, or can you just kind of go with what you feel at the moment?
Well, if I would recommend, going with what they feel at the moment, or if somebody, again, the person can, they can wield that any way they want. If they have a rhythm they're familiar with that they is like, well, I can play that, if they can justify playing it, then great. In certain traditions, there are for sure rhythms that are equated to, for example, prosperity. So I would definitely sometimes, I just make stuff up on the spot unless I'm serving, unless I'm providing a ceremony that's going to be connecting or honoring a spirit or a deity that may have a specific rhythm. I'll go out of my way to make sure that I'm doing as best as I can. But when I'm just at home or, in the midst of a small company and we want to just begin some sacred drumming, well, making it up on the spot is the best. And that's kind of the bit of the magic too, because the person will start thinking, well, what the heck am I going to do? And then they start tapping away, and then 10 minutes later or something, when they open their eyes again, they'll be like, wow, that was quite a little journey. And, practice makes perfect. Just tinker around on the smallest of drums. So if they know a rhythm that's good for prosperity, that's great. And if they don't, there's no problem. Making it up on the spot or just finding something that is just literally visited into the person's consciousness of the drum, can't question that. You can't question that sort of synergy. You can't question that, but you go with it. I think they want whatever they want.
Right. That's really very interesting. I think that's really beautiful. And I like that you said you could use, the smaller ones, the ones that are not as expensive or not as big. And I'm grateful that you pointed that out. Do you know of a specific supplier or drum maker that people can use, or someone that you would suggest?
Well, I hate giving plugs to big drum corporations because none of them have ever sponsored my band. But that being said, you can't go wrong with a Remo. R-E-M-O. Those are like the synthetic drums that a lot of people play. I play one. Quite a few guys I know play them. They're synthetic heads. So they're not susceptible to the weather. Remo make so any music store, any good music store that has a good selection of drums, they will have many kinds of Remos. And the other company that's also very popular is the Toka, T-O-C-C-A, Toka. Toka and Remo are the biggest manufacturers of drums for people that are just going to play at home with something small or play on a stage. But again, some of the colorful, like ethnic stores, whatever they may be, you'll find at times they sell these much cheaper ones that come from Indonesia that look like little tribal drums, and there's really no supplier. You just have to sort of find a hippie store or a store that serves one of the ethnicities that sort of has it akin to drumming. They'll have those in there. So, but any good music store, a big one that has a good drum selection, will also carry a line of tribal drums. And Remos or Tokas do sell all sorts of stuff that you can get under $100, right around $100, and those things are going to last a long time. And they can be small too. That's
awesome. Well, I'm a huge believer in utilizing our patron elements assigned to us through our astrological signs, and I'm wondering if we can enhance intention drumming or spell drumming, or however you want to put it, by incorporating elements like, say, for example, drumming on the side of a bowl of water, or a cauldron with incense in it, and drumming on that, incorporating the vibration of the drumming in with the element, or a pot of earth, or the side of a candle holder. Do you think that that would be something that would enhance the energy of the drumming?
It could. I have participated in some very obscure things, being hit with hands and sticks, big cauldrons. I've done that. I wasn't alone when it was happening. Water containers, certainly hit a few of those, or, you know, made noises with water. To be quite honest, yeah, I've done that before, and I know other people that have. Again, as if somebody got rhythmically inclined and really wants to go that way, and I've had people ask, you know, send me emails and say, hey, look, my coven, you know, we do open things once a month or something. I want to do a whole of drums and drum on everything, and somehow, you know, and if I'm feeling generous, and sometimes they'll be like, if you give me a few days, I'll take you something out. And, you know, I always get the feedback that, you know, it was really cool, and they had a great time with it. You could drum on, especially glass, like glass bottles that have different amounts of liquid in them. With light sticks, you can do all kinds of sounds. And absolutely, you can, the sky's the limit with adding rhythm and percussion to an altar. As long as what you're hitting is, you know, it's not considered, you know, a taboo, because some people have some things in altars. Don't touch that. Don't hit that.
Right, right.
My altar, you know, like, so the parameters are all good. Why not? I mean, that to me is, I've drummed on a wheelbarrow with 50 guys, like with sticks, like, because that's what we had at the time out in the country. We wanted to make some noise, and that wheelbarrow was our vehicle. And so we smashed the hell out of it with all kinds of sounds, and hitting the wood part, the metal part, whatever it was. Everyone was banging around on it. It happens.
That's awesome.
Yeah. You guys do amazing work. I mean, we were there ourselves and hearing it. And you kind of know after a while that music in general is very healing and powerful. So do you guys ever incorporate other instruments into your spell work, or, you know, maybe a group spell with one person drumming and one person perhaps playing the flute, or, you know, any other instruments?
We do. In our men's circle, that our band is out of, we make all kinds of horrible noises when we're not performing. So there is definitely a time somebody's like, hey, check out this weird old accordion I picked up at the flea market. I want to use this tonight or something. And so inevitably, everything from flutes to accordions or weird horns or something somebody got, lots of different types of flutes are common. We will definitely do that as much as possible, incorporate a little bit of it. And then, you know, our band does the same thing. Like when we played at Hex Fest, we weren't able to be in the position to play other instruments because there just simply was, that event did not cater to sound or to a sound stage or something. But when we play it, but then some of them that we know have fantastic sound people, we actually play, we incorporate guitar into our show, and electric bass, and keyboard at times. We've used accordions, banjos, and things for certain songs to mimic sort of more exotic instruments, but we use them quite often, as well as flutes on stage. So different times, different locations, the right time, right place, we can play a lot of different things. So guitars, of course, will come out and be played along with drums in our circles, in our private rituals, harmonicas, you know, like, especially if there's a few people there, you know. So again, if it's a private thing, the more instruments people have, sometimes the better. And if you're not trying to be fancy with it, even novices, you know, can stumble upon some unique stuff. So yeah, lots of different instruments. I use a lot. I have a house full of instruments, so I dabble on all kinds of things, and sometimes it's horrible, and for people to listen to, and other times I think, hey, I'm good at that. But you know, it's for rituals, yeah, flutes. Very specific flutes and recorders, I think, are like very powerful instruments, and I have quite a few of them. Lots of friends of mine have them. Anytime somebody can be playing a flute to the drum or at a ceremony, if there is only flutes, I've been to quite a few festivals, a few times here and there, that, you know, the drumming has sort of died down around the fire, and all of a sudden 4 or 5 guys that all kind of were okay at the flute all start playing together. And whenever that happens, you know, I always go, oh wow, that sounds so incredible. I could go up as close as I can and listen to it. I like to close my eyes, because that's another world that takes you to first off, if you're at some sort of festival, you're already kind of away from the norm and the sort of normal world, and then the fact that it's a fire is there that everyone's gravitating towards. And once flutes come out, I find them to be very travel oriented, like they really can take me away, and so that's why I like to sort of dabble with them here and there. And so I think the flute is very powerful instrument for everything that we some people, never mind the drumming we're described, all the way through any ceremony, like if you're going to drum to an answer to prosperity, you can do the same thing by playing a guitar, playing any instrument really. Like if anyone is inclined to play anything, while it's a slightly different vibration from drumming, it's still music, and music is adding vibration to our general vicinity, and that vibration can travel very far. So any music can enhance our work exponentially.
Right.
Well, absolutely. And you actually just inspired me, because I'm always thinking in terms of metaphysics, and I played the flute for years because my father was a music teacher, so I really had no choice. We had to play the flute, the piano, the guitar, all the things that when you're forced to do it, you're like, I'm never going to do this when I grow up anymore. Now, of course, I've still cart my flute around with me. I've actually pulled it out to start utilizing it again. But listening to you and what you were saying, you just like opened up like a whole world for me, because now what I think I'm going to do is, since I can't drink coffee anymore, so I suffer from fatigue, I think I'm going to actually drum energy into a glass of water and drink it and see what happens, to see if I can adjust it.
That would definitely make a difference.
I think that it will. So see, you've already cured me of my...
All right.
He can have a little kick for you once in a while too, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I'm also very caught up with elements. I work very heavily with elements, and I was trying to come up with elements, with instruments that represent the elements. So I figured the woodwinds would be good for the element of air, obviously. But can you give me an idea, or what your opinion would be, of instruments that would go with fire, water, and earth? I thought maybe drumming for the earth, since you're like right up against it. But what do you think?
Yeah, I would say for sure drumming for earth, if that was going to be the only directional power that would be placed in. Although, you could put the drum everywhere,
right.
And you could put several instruments in many places. But yeah, I would agree. If you flutes or woodwind instruments, right, where air, you find that a lot of people gravitate towards harp and things like that for water, because it's such an emotional instrument, and water being so emotional, of course. Yeah, drumming for earth, I would say. For fire, I don't know, you could go the route of using an instrument made of steel, like whether it be bells or something that was forged out of fire.
Yeah, there you go. It was created through fire.
Right. You got to become creative. That's the one thing you got to do. And kind of maybe you're playing whatever instruments and just having the elements represented in the room would probably work and do a good job. What do you think about that, Witchdoctor Utu?
I'm sorry. Yeah, any instrument available. Yeah.
I didn't hear.
No, Star asked you if playing the instruments and just having the elements represented in the room, instead of actually having the instrument represent the element, just by bringing all the elements in as you're working your drums or whatever instrument, do you think that would enhance the ceremony and the success of the work?
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, yes, and yes.
It's a resounding yes. Awesome. That sounds awesome.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah.
So tell us about your work with Goddess Harriet Tubman.
Oh wow, yes, that I'm so interested to hear about.
I'm really chomping at the bit to hear more about that.
Yeah. when I was describing earlier meeting up with the Voodoo Spiritual Temple from New Orleans, it was literally within the first year and a half of, doing everything I could to go through the gauntlet to be connected to that temple and to the people involved, that when a couple of them were up here staying with me, they were relaying the message to me that, while you're up here living in St. Catharines, you should focus on some of the sort of voodoo and conjure that comes with this area. And, I knew, because I'm not from St. Catharines. I moved here when I was in my 20s, but I was from Toronto, which is a couple hours away. But then I did know that St. Catharines had an Underground Railroad legacy. I did know that that was part of this town's legacy, the Harriet Tubman living here for 15 years, and how important this town was, because St. Catharines, when she moved here to make this her base of operations for all her years of the Underground Railroad, she would leave in the spring, buy everything from, train to walking to horseback, boat, whatever it was to get as far as, Delaware and Massachusetts at times and West Virginia to meet up with various tracks of people coming to meet up with her. And she'd ended up coming back here in the winter. So I was aware that there was that legacy, but I never, at the time, I never connected those dots. So when they said you should connect with something here locally,
Right.
I was like, well, what? Like what? And they were like, Harriet Tubman. Because St. Catharines was small at the time. I lived literally around the corner from the church that was her house of prayer, and that little part of town was the place that freedom seekers would live when they made it here. So that was the moment that I was like, okay, and I was kind of put on a quest of sorts, and I started to go around the property down there at the church, and met a few of the people, and I didn't tell them, hey, I want to, find out about some of the secret conjure voodoo that's associated with you. I didn't go in there talking.
Right.
I managed to be respectful, and obviously I had to hit the books and be like, what are they talking about? And when I realized, in very short time after doing a few workings and meeting up with a few folks that are associated with that conversation, that like, wow, okay, so that immediately gave me something to work with here in town. And then, instant manifestation is one of those things we say a lot, but from the moment I began to work with her spirit and the spirits of those that she brought to freedom, it's unlike anything. So much to the fact now that, my public spiritual work is almost completely associated with Mama Moses, the amount of work that I've done to revere her, write about her, ritualize for her, and do lectures, and just how far and wide I've done this, around throughout the United States. It's taken over. My house is the Niagara Voodoo Shrine. It's an entire walk-in shrine dedicated to the Underground Railroad spirits. And I've met other people of like mind, men and women of various colors throughout the United States and parts of the area of Canada I live in that are also on that sort of path, but had never really connected certain dots. So I've been fortunate that around since the year 2000 to be part of that wave of a renaissance of people working with her spirit, because ultimately around the year 2000, during all those celebrations of the millennium, Harriet Tubman was a descendant. Her mother was from Ghana. They were Ashanti people. So Harriet Tubman grew up as a child knowing a little bit about the African roots of her people. And so they know that in Ghana, the royal family made her a queen mother posthumously during the year 2000 millennial celebrations, which has never happened before. So there's actually people in Ghana that celebrate her. They sell statues of her. They revere her like a queen mother. And
wow. That is so inspiring.
In a certain way that worked. And when people sometimes people will question about it. Well, what have you been able to do to elevate that spirit? Like nothing that her own people have already done. It's already been done. I'm just enhancing it. I live right at the spot that it was so important to her, and so that it's very tangible for me to work with, and so therefore my passion for it, because of how real it is and how much I get back from her and some of her followers from the realm. I've dedicated, and so therefore the Dragon Ritual Drummers are very much associated, because when we go on tour, a lot of events want us to do workshops or ceremonies, and the most popular one that we do is some sort of working to honor Mama Moses. And here in St. Catharines, too, this is where John Brown came to meet her. So before his raid on Harper's Ferry, John Brown came to St. Catharines, and he spent a few weeks here and got, had exchanged with Harriet Tubman. She was going to join that raid. He came looking for blessings and from her, because she also had this sort of supernatural lore about her. Definitely a devout Christian. There's no, I would never say that she was a voodoo priestess or anything like that. I've never said that. But, and that doesn't matter. People like me or like you, we can revere people that were Jewish or
absolutely.
Whatever. We have the ability as spirit workers to do that. Whether that spirit
right.
when you're working with somebody who's very important and so respected and such a powerful person like Harriet Tubman, you wouldn't want to do something that is disfavoring her or disrespecting her in any way. But she likes it. Many of her followers like it. It's part of their people's culture to be revered.
Right.
So she had a mystical side to her. She had what people call the charm and the gift to divine and to know premonitions about whether certain times were safe to travel, and avoided bounty hunters that were trying to catch her in 2 countries. You know, she was never caught.
Right.
She never lost anybody on her particular track. She boasted about that.
Right, right. That is really, really inspiring. I guess in some ways you could say that, from what I'm hearing you say, that that whole element of Harriet Tubman and what she represented, and the spirits of the people that she saved and brought to St. Catherine's, all of them kind of inspired you and your group to revere her and them for all the things that they've done. You know, am I correct with that?
Absolutely.
You know,
The triumph. It's such a legacy. You know, the Underground Railroad, to me, even like nowadays, I mean, I live in Canada. We have a slightly different political system than y'all have right now, of course, and a very different political climate. But Underground Railroad, it's hard to believe sometimes when you really stop and think about it, that existed, and how many people were involved in it in the 1800s in America.
It's amazing.
Racial segregation and slavery was at its absolute height and worst. It was so bad, the Civil War erupted in the middle of it. And so up to that moment, up to the Civil War, for the amount of people of various colors, whether they were free people of color or whites of various religious denominations, you know, Quakers, Jews, and Catholics, you know, the people that came together, and just free thinkers, quite a lot of the free thinkers that helped with the Underground Railroad, they were agnostic or downright atheists. So the fact that that network existed in so many different states, that blows my mind sometimes when I really think about it, that, you know, how progressive that is and how dangerous it was is inspiring. The fact that people did what they did in order for the right thing when it would seem impossible. Like, you look at the climate right now, the racial climate in America, I've never seen anything like it. I mean, I'm not old enough to remember pre-civil rights, but I certainly have not seen such blatant racism in American culture as an observer and a person who lives right on the border. I've never seen anything like it in my lifetime. This is crazy. And so, you know, what more time is the Underground Railroad a bit more poignant to remind people? It's like, hey, you know, do you realize how important the Underground Railroad was, and how important some of these figures and these historical people that risked their lives, their livelihood, right thing to do to help somebody that was different than you? That is an inspiration. That's an example of culture that I think is very valuable.
Right. That is just, I have to say, it is very awe-inspiring. And you know, it's nice to even hear of people revering her and all of them. I'm from Canada myself, Toronto, and I did not know any of this. So it's great to hear all of this. I mean, you don't know everything, so you learn as you go. So it's wonderful hearing it. And you know, I have to take my hat off to you guys and for honoring them and revering them.
Absolutely.
I feel very blessed to be able to do so, and to carry on her legacy with favor, you know, from people of the culture, you know, that give me the okay. It's one thing if I was running around and every person is a descendant of Underground Railroad freedom seekers and people of black shirts saying, shut that guy up, who is this idiot? You know, luckily I'm in good favor with folks because they understand I'm doing it for the right reason. And I'm entitled to, because the Underground Railroad had many people of color involved. So some of Harriet Tubman's most closest confidants and supporters were white. So, you know, it's a very welcoming spirit world, you know, whereas some of the traditions can be hard to penetrate for people that are not of color or of that particular culture. And people are trying to enter Santeria, they don't speak Spanish. That's going to be really hard, you know, trying to serve the Orishas from American conjure and hoodoo, you know, it has been veiled within the Black community of the United States for decades. And so it's also hard to penetrate. So it's good when you can find something that's welcoming, that you're not offending anybody, not offending any particular spirit regimen. Underground Railroad spirits are very welcoming, and there's very many of them of all colors. But obviously, Harriet Tubman is the supreme queen, you could say, Queen Mother. That's what she is titled. She's the Queen Mother of the whole spirit world.
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that about her.
That is awesome. And Goddess Star, I can't quite see the chat room, so could you just tell us what comments are going on in there? I feel so left out.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Goddess Sashia has said, I know what a witch doctor is. However, can he describe what it means to him?
Oh, okay. Well, a witch doctor is, it's a title that I have. It's a title that was bestowed upon me. It does intonate that, well, also, the word witch, in general, I'll just backtrack a little bit. For those of us who call ourselves witches, you know, that was not a term that was looked upon very favorably not that long ago. And even in pagan Europe, you know, pagan Europe referred to people as witches. It has a negative connotation at some point. It described a certain person who did work that was not of the norm of the people around there. A bit more powerful, a bit more avant-garde, off the path a little bit. So, you know, it's taken a long time for a lot of people to bring some dignity to the word witch. And rightly so. I know a lot of men who champion the cause of using the word warlock towards describing men of power. Got no problem with it. A witch doctor does intonate a sort of a unique picture in most people's mind. I think they ultimately do think of somebody of a more primal culture and probably a darker hue skin of some kind, and somebody who's got lots of bones and lots of crazy feathers and stuff like that. And quite honestly, I have a lot of those things. Like, my house is pretty crazy, and the kind of tools I need at my disposal for the type of work that I've been taught requires a lot of unique curios and conjures and various things. So a witch doctor is somebody who does do work on sort of both sides of the path. It's somebody that is, and it also was a type of word used to describe people in North America. There were people of color, and there were some white people that donned the name. There were practicing conjuring. That was one of the words. You get your root doctor, professor, conjure doctor, two-headed doctor. There's all these sort of colloquialism terminology to describe people of power within the conjure and the world. And a witch doctor is one of them. It's just not a very common one. So when I was given that option to have that title, I said, yeah, that's what I want to do, because I sort of visualized the spirits that I was starting to work with. That's what they were. And then ultimately the path that I spent a little time on, it gave me the title of witch doctor. It's because there's certain spirits and lineages that are no longer there that I continue to keep alive. And so that's done through fetish work, various carvings, various things wrapped into wood that are representing their spiritual entities that need to be kept alive. The type of work that they do, and the type of work I do sometimes involves a little bit of the, you know, what's the word, like shamanic, or the primal a little bit, where spirit world and channel and possession is involved, and pass that on to somebody. That's the type of work sort of specifically for witch doctors. As is sort of the sometimes nefarious work that some of us will do. You know, it's because it has to be done sometimes, and you've got to do it. And so, you know, for those that are taught how to do it, once in a while, if it seems right, somebody needs something done, you know, then we can at least suggest how to do that. Sometimes it's a little less palpable than what the average person, the light worker, would do, for sure. But no less dignified or honorable. But a witch doctor most certainly does have a slight different approach to things. It is a bit more primal, a bit more colorful, if somebody was to really look at it that way, and a little more mysterious on a certain side of the type of spirit work that we most do, and the type of spirit we serve, and or have been given the chance to continue to keep alive. So that's what a witch doctor is. The part witch, part doctor.
I like that. That's a good definition of that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And thank you, Goddess Stasia, for that question. That was beautiful.
Yes, thank you, Goddess Stasia, for that question. You know, listening to you talk about Goddess Harriet and the work that she does, it occurred to me that she could probably help to free me from some negative bad habits and or bad energies, and I'd love to make an offering to her. What kind of offerings does she like? Particularly, what kind of food offerings does she like, if you know?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. She is used for very many people unshackled. And while it might seem a little almost too easy to say that, it's true. Somebody is being bound, they're shackled, or they're just tied to something they can't deal with anymore, whether it be a job or marriage or friendships or just a relationship in general, where it's not healthy. They've got to break free. She is that spirit of perseverance and strength, overcoming all obstacles. Also, a healer. She was renowned as a healer. That's kind of how she got to be associated as a root worker, at least, or a root doctor, was because of her knowledge of herbal medicines. That was, to the point where she was a nurse, as well as a spy, but a nurse for the Union Army in the Civil War. Once the Civil War started, she joined the Union Army, and she was, she was a spy, and she was one of the first women to lead a raid. In American military history, she led a raid to go free up to, I think, 700 slaves.
Wow.
It was an epic historic battle, and she was, it's a true story. She served the last meal while she was a nurse. She certainly wasn't a cook or doing any of that kind of job. She just had a lot of respect for Lieutenant Shaw, the guy that led the famous raid from the movie Glory, the fighting 54th of the Massachusetts 54th Black Regiment. And she served his last meal, and she was at that battle. And so she was a healer, a warrior, all that. Offerings for her. For a lot of people, when I meet them, or they want to start working with Harriet Tubman, and they have an association or what they think voodoo is or a conjure, their go-to thing is, oh, she must like rum. Right? You got to give her some alcohol, right? Because for whatever reason, a lot of people think that every voodoo spirit or every spirit wants rum. Right? It's not really the case. With Harriet Tubman, she's never offered alcohol. A lot of her life is known because she, had a lot of people interview her over the length of time, and a couple of books were written about her while she was still alive, when people came and spent time with her in her dying years. And her life was pretty well documented. I'm sure a few things were glossed over or erased, and there's a lot of debate about a few things were purposely left out, but she did not have any fondness towards alcohol at all. She actually found it very revolting, and didn't like to visit people, and part of people over the suffragist movement. She was involved in that. So the whole alcohol thing is not good to her. Her favorite offerings, you want to, the best thing to do is people can look up a few quotes of her online, a few spirituals that can be sung, and connect with her. You kind of got to go through that motion and say a few prayers to her, about her, to honor her and her work. And her favorite food, of course, if you're going to lay out an offering for her, you've got to include the one offering that's very much overlooked, which is water. Water is sustenance life. So water is provided, hot coffee, a wonderful drink she loved. Everybody obviously loved coffee. It was not very common, of course, in the 1800s or like parts of the 1900s. That was an expensive drink. So coffee, hot herbal tea, those are the things that you take your time to go to your way to make as far as liquids go. And her favorite food, quoted by her, and couldn't get enough of, it's hard to believe because she's such a small woman, is cornbread. That is her favorite food. Her favorite food as she was alive.
Which one?
Cornbread.
Cornbread. Okay, I was not hearing you too well. Awesome. That's really wonderful.
Aficionado, hardcore cornbread lover. Made it, loved it. People gave it to her as a gift. People came to talk to her in her twilight years and asked for her offerings. Or asked for her opinions or to get interviews from her. It was known. Bring her some cornbread. So cornbread is a big thing for her. So if one is going to make food for her, of course you incorporate an image of her. There was actually quite a few photographs of her taken. So a photo of her, coffee, water, some herbal tea, some hot tea, things like that. Honey is wonderful to put in tea. Sweets, we know she probably would have liked. Anything that's yummy and delicious, and of course cornbread. That's the staple that will attract her. If it's fresh, even better. You can heat it up in the oven, get that fragrance. The cornbread is the ultimate food entrance into her heart, and into her soul.
Right. Wow. That's
Well,
so amazing.
do you think she would like macaroni and cheese? Only because someone whispered in my ear that she would like macaroni and cheese. It could have been her, or it could have just been somebody else, but I have to ask since I was requested for macaroni and cheese.
Well, I don't see why not. I mean, a person could ultimately, if I've seen some elaborate altars made up to her and other spirits, and so sometimes really there's no such thing as too much because spirits, when she comes, she doesn't come alone very often. Harriet Tubman was surrounded, being the person that she was, who was wanted, dead or alive, and most preferably dead in the eyes of some people. She had a circle around her of protection of people that were her runners, her advisors, warriors, things like that. She had and healers. There was a circle around her. And so, and because she had such a love of family, the first few times that she went to free people through the Underground Railroad, when she first began to be that famous conductor, sneaking in and sneaking out, it was her family members that she went to retrieve on several trips. So she's got a love for family. And, for people that have ever been fortunate enough to work at Native American ceremonies, you'll find that quite often too, that when someone's, like when an ancestor arrives or something, they come with all their relations. So when people are, praying to Sitting Bull or their Chief Blackhawk or something, they never come alone. They come with their relations, which is a slew of people. So it's best to have food to keep everybody happy. So you can't have too much. So if somebody felt inclined to be like, I'm going to give her some macaroni and cheese, well, try it, right? The only thing we know that she really didn't like was alcohol, and that's the only thing. And that being said, I've worked with her energy so long that the space is big enough. I still leave alcohol on the altar for her, but at a different part of the altar for her people, because her people, most assuredly, whether she likes it or not, they like a little nip of some alcohol here and there.
Right. You have to be fair to everybody. I can dig it.
Yeah. So that's a very dignified offering. Why not?
It's true.
And from the chat room, I just wanted you to know that all the goddesses in there are saying thank you so much for bringing up Goddess Harriet Tubman tonight. They also said, Goddess Stasia said, very, very exultantly, very happy to say that she made cornbread tonight, and she's so happy that she did. She can bring it. Yay! She wanted you to know. So that's really awesome. It's a bit like is the conjure work that you do based on her tradition, modalities, or that she specifically used?
Some of it is, again, because no one knows exactly what she was doing as far as the spiritual person. She was a very devout Christian. She believed in God. A lot of people believe in God, and that means various things. She did believe in God. She was a part of the Episcopalian Church. That was the American Methodist Episcopalian Church was the congregation she was associated with the most. So she definitely revered God, revered Jesus. But a lot of people who were runaway slaves and or African with only one generation moved from their continent, that's how voodoo and conjure became what it was, and how some African tradition survived in America was of that sort of synchronization. So what we also know is that she did some sort of divination. She did various forms of divination with rocks and with signs in the clouds, animal movement, because this woman was living in the wild at times while she could assimilate and come into the city and hook up with people like Frederick Douglass and Mr. Still in Boston. Like she could do that, but she could survive for months on end in the wild, and so she used, like most people would do, nature as well. So some sort of knowledge of animals, which ones to eat, which ones not to, which animals, when they present themselves in front of you like a snake or a hawk or something, she utilized a little bit of that, as did most people in the Underground Railroad, using it and having to live for months on end, up to a year in the wilds, traveling at night. The whole idea of the Underground Railroad with certain spirituals had to do with migrations of birds and constellations in the sky being at the right place at different times. So she definitely incanted as well. So when she was administering healing upon people that had diseases or had infections or were sick, she had prayers that she recited. She never did know how to read or write, which when it comes to her being so devout at times, I sometimes question a few people that I have respect for when we talk, that they say, no, she believed in the Bible only. It's like, well, did she have someone reading it to her all the time then? Because no way she memorized that. That we know from interviews. She didn't memorize the whole Bible. So her exact way of religion and spirituality is open for debate, but should be at least kept to the right side of real. And what is real is that she was devout, she believed in spirit, she believed in ancestors, she called upon them, she called upon God. She at times was the clergy for people out in the wilds, which is what, again, conjure is all about. Somebody had to be the priest, somebody had to be the priestess, and quite often it was her. So she used incantations, prayers, signs around her, things that she could throw before her. I've done my best over the last 15 years to really try to draw that out and understand exactly what she had been doing. And what she would have been doing is very akin to something like faith healing. You know, a faith healing, a person who, whatever reason, possessed sort of powers that she did, and the inspiration for her to be able to survive what she did, and how many people she was able to bring to freedom, and then be that sort of a sort of poster child for the movement, for the movement of the Underground Railroad. And she
Right.
to her. She has some zest, she has some power, and so no one knows what tradition exactly. But calling upon, when working with Harriet Tubman, and this makes some people uncomfortable, as mentioned earlier, one of the things to incorporate is the Lord's Prayer. She most certainly did recite that. She most certainly did recite certain spirituals, saying certain spirituals. And so that's just part of it, and that's hopefully what some people can deal with when they're working with some of the traditions that are conjuring voodoo. It does have elements of Christianity as part of it, but they dwindled from that path because they had to get what they had to get done. And the church, of course, was a lot of mysteries. There was enigmas, of riddles wrapped in mysteries, from spirituals to certain things and certain works being done. And so she definitely was a mystical person. No one knows exactly what she did, but one of the things they know is she would gather herbs at night from a graveyard when it came to certain ministering certain healings. She would walk at night through cemeteries, gather herbs. She would be praying out loud to herself. Again, incantation, hands-on, faith healing, put your hands on, channeling down the power of the Holy Spirit, and utilizing herbs and roots and various parts of animals. Straight up witchdoctory, root doctory, that kind of stuff. That's what she was a good heavy dose of faith healing in there.
Right. She used what she had, basically, what was around her, what she had. And obviously it worked for her because, like you said, she has a record of never being caught. She was able to get so many of them out. So whatever she did and whatever her spirituality was, it worked, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, absolutely. She did say many times that she, like what is supposed to have been written down from interviews, is that she did not discriminate in any way, shape, or form when it came to religion. How could she? Her greatest, when it came to, Garrett, who was one of her biggest supporters, he was a white person who was involved in the Shaker cult, which was a break off of the Quakers. It was, Harriet Tubman participated in the very beginnings of spiritualism coming out of the parts of New York that it did, rappings and tappings on the table. The whole spiritualist movement that came pouring out of that part of America actually is strictly because of the interaction of how many Quakers were housing runaway slaves in their barns and in their properties for the few days that they would be there. That obviously religion was being discussed about them. Spiritual practices were being discussed. And when people talk about hoodoo and conjure down in the South, and what the fragments were, the bits and pieces, whether it's part this, part that, well, up in the North, because it's just not something people celebrate in a romantic notion for some reason, doesn't matter to me, I kind of like it, is that spiritualism is born out of that interaction. And Frederick Douglass was involved in lots of spiritual ceremonies. John Brown, who was a big supporter and colleague of both of them before he was hung, he had a strange mystical side to him as well. So, there was a lot of different things going on at that time in amongst different households and different places they stopped. So, she did utilize whatever she could, and she obviously adapted, with what was effective. She just always had a devotion to God. And again, there's nothing obscure about that. And at the same time, we all know that possibly some of the books were written at the time of, the Victorian era there, late 1800s and early 1900s, before she died in 1913. just not Mitch, because, you know, it would have been salacious, you know, it would have been, you know, there's rumors of her killing people for the right reasons even that were just left out. You know, when people were, you know, bounty hunters coming too close or somebody that wanted to go back. She always had a gun on her. She was a warrior from the day one. She carried a gun and she had no problems using it, they say, and she pulled it up quite often. So, you know, she's a very unique individual, and she's a very powerful, devout, inspiring person that continues to give us all that faith, you know, from the spirit world.
Perseverance. That's awesome. Thank you so much. And from the chat room, all the goddesses, and they are saying how much they've learned so much from you tonight about her. They did not know any of this. Neither did I. So we're very grateful for all that you are divulging and passing on to us and sharing. So thank you so much.
A pleasure, for sure.
And, you know, just listening to how you described how she worked, you know, there's lots of Christian witches out there. And she just sounds like a Christian witch to me, where she incorporates her spirituality with working with the natural tools that were left here for us to utilize. So, you know, she might not be pleased at me calling her a Christian witch, and I mean no disrespect whatsoever, but we do have a lot of Christian witches that believe in Christ, but they still do their work within that. We even had a show with Star Cassis, who's very Christian, and she's like one of the best conjure workers I've ever run across. I got her book, and a lot of her things has helped me tremendously. And
That's Star, yeah.
But Star, I have no problem with saying the Lord's Prayer, because I believe this, as priestesses, we have to work within any spirituality, depending on who our clients are. So I have no problem with that. Christ is my friend too. He works very hard for me.
No, absolutely. You're dead on. And I don't think there's any offense at all to be calling her something akin to what a Christian witch was, because, yeah, we all know, I mean, I was born in Europe, so I know that part of the island in Scotland that I was from, like, yeah, witches, for the most part, were Christian or Catholic of some sort. You know, they did work that was, you know, a little on the other side at times, and that's where, you know, certain people have the issues with it, but it is what it is, right? Faith healing, there are some denominations of Catholicism and Christianity that flat out just encourages calling down the Holy Spirit to enter you and your friends all around you, or
that's right.
In the sense of the Catholic, to be honoring and praying to saints of people who have passed away. It's very necromantic, you know, Catholicism is a compliment.
Absolutely, yeah.
Blend in, they're really good, right? You can blend into that because they're calling into, human spirits, you know, it's interesting.
They would not appreciate us saying those things about them, but definitely you're absolutely right.
You're absolutely right. And, you know, I've seen it through Catholicism, through all kinds of ways. You know, it all blends together. It doesn't have to be one way. It actually, everything complements each other. And I just love how you have elevated your group, and everyone that you work with have elevated her to a goddess status. How has she helped you personally? What has she personally helped you with, if you choose to share that with us?
Well, perseverance. To be able to keep I'm at the front of the Dragon, which is the first keep it moving. So I do most of a lot of the work in order to keep it going, surviving. There from the original lineup. Just the various different traditions I've been in, and the amount of patience and perseverance it takes to make some of this shit. We all know what it's like to have these pagan communities when it just gets to the point where why am I doing this anymore? What's the point of this? It's lost. Certain communities just get that bad taste in their mouth. So perseverance, she's bestowed upon me a vision. Like I've been able to tell stories of certain hardships that certain people felt amidst going through the Underground Railroad. So that's my biggest part, is to try to relate to people how emotional and how sick and how tired some of these people were, although they were traveling terrified and hungry, being chased by dogs, and being caught was like probably worse than death. That's why they risked their lives to try to go to freedom. But she's bestowed upon me somebody to see that journey, and therefore to have such compassion and such devotion to those who made their journey to freedom just to end up in an abandoned cemetery. And I even so when I know there's properties that there are bones underneath the ground, whether it be a parking lot or someone's backyard or something or some field, where you know freedom seekers are buried there. There's no marker. That's the place that a lot of people like me that work with the Underground Railroad go to try to honor those people, because how poetically sad is that to have achieved something so monumentous for some people to walk from Louisiana to St. Catharines, Ontario, to endure all the hunting and the to come to make it to freedom, and then inevitably there's not even a headstone to commemorate you. And that's why our symbol is the carrot and the cross, because we build those a lot. We know there's a power spot for the Underground Railroad. We take rocks, make the pile, put the cross in it, and that's the beacon to serve the home to let the spirits know that we acknowledge them, we know they're there, and to give sort of like the nameless, faceless person who's been lost for some time, to give them their proper marker of spirit and grace. She's given me a lot of gifts. Of, I mean, travel. Times after I start to revere her more and become more confident, to share the legacies of her and her followers, I end up getting flown somewhere to go and present it. So I automatically think at that moment, well, the first people I need to thank is her and her followers that I'm working with, because I'm going all the way up to this place or flying down to that place and meeting new people and exchanging. So my gratitude is immense, and just the entire path, like that path I'm trying to recreate or connect or save, sort of, and just that sort of spiritual sight that she's able to give to a person who works with her. She reveals a lot of things to you, and you can see certain things, and that's what really inspires me and keeps me devoted, because she's one of only a few that can literally enter and present a vision that you see you normally would never seen before. That's usually a very poignant and important vision to see.
Wow. And just what you said, it's just mind-boggling to me, the idea of walking from Louisiana to Canada.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's extraordinary.
Idea of it. I mean, you have to force me to walk down the block. If I can drive,
I remember.
And Star, oh my God, Star is definitely.
Sorry, I'm laughing.
Oh my God, I irritated her so badly on Hexa because she walks everywhere. I'm like, do we have to walk? Can we take a cab? Is there a bus? I'm dying walking. So imagine.
And there I am with my walker, and I'm going, yes, we're walking.
She's walking anyway, and I just can't even fathom it. And then you can only walk at night, so you can't see where you're going. It's not like they had street lights like we have now and things to help you navigate. There's no GPS.
Snakes.
You have to watch the stars and hope for the best. That is I just can't even believe it. I'm just thinking about it. I mean, certainly I've known the story for all my life, but now that I'm actually thinking about walking that kind of a journey is
phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Yeah. And it's I guess it's because also you're putting it in front of our faces and saying, relate to it, basically. See it for what it is and relate to this. And it's just, it's so extraordinary, the fact that she actually did it, and many times, not just once, she actually did it so many times. Truly, truly amazing individual.
That's amazing.
Which, kind of makes you kind of go into the fact is, it's interesting how extraordinary people can do so much down here. And then they transition and then they continue to work to help us in one form or another. Mm-hmm. And it seems like that's exactly what Goddess Harriet Tubman has done. So do you believe that those who come to Earth with a spiritual purpose, because I was thinking about this earlier and it's just so interesting, do they complete that purpose and transition and then become maybe gods or goddesses, deified,
Well, I'm not sure I would say a god or goddess. I mean, but I know what you mean. Mm-hmm. And absolutely, if somebody is deified and or kept alive in spirit or elevated, there's various words for it.
Right.
That part of them in spirit that can stay tangible to us here on Earth and on this plane during this time, even if they left, a very long time ago, then they're elevated beings. They're spiritual entities that are not just the average person. Like, you know, if you and I, you know, grandparents died, I mean, I have a special place for my grandparents, but, you know, while I might think at times, wow, what a goddess they were, or call them various things, no one outside of a few people in my family know who they were or are ever going to remember them. So when somebody has specifically, especially the Underground Railroad spirits, a lot of them, there's plaques dedicated to them, properties named after them, you know, buildings that, you know, preserve that they lived in. And so that really helps a lot, because that means a lot of people are going to those places and thinking about them and leaving offerings that, you know, the various several places, the statuary of Harriet Tubman and John Brown and Frederick Douglass, associated with the Underground Railroad, places that they lived and cemeteries and such. That means that the people, you know, when somebody gets to be that point you're talking about, that means that the people have made that so. They have taken the time to commemorate, honor, and revere a person to the point that they will, you know, and somewhere in there, there's people that really know how to do that, to do it along with it all. Make sure that that person can be elevated to a level of folk saint almost, you know, I mean.
Right.
The folk saint is, right?
Right. Absolutely. It's interesting because Christopher Penczak wrote a book called The Mighty Dead, and it's based on a lot of different parts of or types of transitioning that human beings go through, mainly dealing with our ancestral dead and things like that. And in reading and thinking about that book and what where you guys have placed Harriet Tubman, there's so much there that represents that. You guys need to read that book and understand it, because it's you guys have done a wonderful job of revering her and honoring her, and I think that's appreciated on many levels. And in the chat room, I know they wanted to tell you thank you for that as well, and they said that they are finding incredible amounts of information and resources on this topic online, and it's truly inspiring, and thank you. Just wanted to let you know that.
You got a good chat room. I've been looking at it a couple times.
Yeah, they're really amazing people in there. They're always like that.
They are.
Wonderful group of people.
Well, you know, I just want you to know that I was just given a vision of cornbread soaked in molasses. So that is what is going to be my offering, is cornbread soaked in molasses. I think that was a direct request, and I am going to go with it. And I think it's so fitting that we are having this show on the day that we celebrate Martin Luther King's birthday, because he's another one that has been elevated to such a high status. So I didn't think of it this way until we started talking about you know, Goddess Harriet here. Now I have to come up with something to offer him, a cake or something to offer him, because I believe that we can still call upon him to help us with bravery and to have the courage of our convictions, much like Goddess Harriet. I'm actually thinking, because actually both of them were spiritual leaders, but Martin Luther King was a preaching man. And so as spiritual leaders ourselves, I think it might behoove us to ask him for help and guidance. What do you think about, you know, asking Martin Luther King Jr. also for help?
I think it's amazing, and yeah, as you're saying that, it's reminding me of other conversations I had with people. That's like, why don't people sell 7-day decorative candles or spiritual candles of Martin Luther King? I know they're out there someplace, but they're not as common. People gravitate, I think, more towards something a little older because of that romantic notion of the root doctor or the witch or this or that.
Right.
But Martin Luther King, yeah, why? And I know a lot of people do pray to his spirit, you know, and I think a lot of people do, but I think a lot more people should. And I don't see why not. Why? What more person, obviously, in our lifetimes, you know, can you not realize has done so much, not just for humanity. I mean, not just for, the Black community of America, but for humanity.
For humanity,
right?
Yeah.
Triumph. It's a human triumph, and it's a triumph of and well, maybe it has a sad ending, but it's a testament to victory, truth, and respect. Yeah, people should. I think I can speak for a few of my friends who are people, men of color in America, that think that far too few people are not praying to ancestors of their culture, i.e., Martin Luther King. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And on his day of all days, today is his birthday. So it is poignant that I'd be talking with you ladies about Harriet Tubman on such a day. It's actually beautiful synergy I can appreciate, and I'm very grateful for it.
Oh, you're welcome.
Right. Absolutely amazing. I just wanted to kind of ask you if you can tell us a little bit about your temple and where is it located?
Yeah, well, I'm in St. Catharines. I'm about a 5-minute drive from the church that Harriet Tubman, not only preached at, but she lived across the street. It's sort of a sadder story with not too good of an ending, but the property that was behind the British Methodist Episcopalian Church, which was her house of prayer, did have bodies back there, people of freedom seekers. And in the last 6 months, the Regency has decided to build a new police station on that previously abandoned land.
Right.
Well, obviously, with people in the congregation, I can easily tell you that there's probably a lot of bullshit happened where some people have not being honest about some of the construction at night, and when they finally gave a report, they said, "Oh no, there was no bodies there." When people only safety years ago were doing another smaller construction job, came across bodies, and then just put them back and told certain people about it. It's a terrible thing, but I live right in the area. I'm right here in St. Catharines. The Niagara Voodoo Shrine it's the house I live in. So people that have been to it, they know when you come in the back door, and the shrine starts at the back door, and you work your way through the kitchen, and pretty much the only room that's spared of the men's parts of sort of Harriet Tubman and the voodoo altars is my bedroom. That's kind of the only place that sort of has some other weird decorations in there. But the rest of the house is essentially a workhouse. So for reading, consultations, initiations, drumming, not a big place by any means, but that is what that is the voodoo shrine. It's the house that I live in.
Very cool.
Like literally around the corner from the church for several years when the voodoo shrine first opened around 2002, 2003. I was living a stone's throw, like just a few doors up from there. So I lived right in the hood for the wonderful years of working with those spirits. Because we know that all those backyards have people buried in them, and for various reasons, various times through the Underground Railroad and shortly thereafter, that the whole block, all the freedom seekers congregated in one sort of like 4 square block area. And it's a heavy place of spirit energy, and so that's where I live.
Very cool. And if someone is interested in learning more about voodoo, how can they start to do that? Is it a spirituality where you really should try and talk to other members of that spirituality, or if that's not possible, are there books can they just read books and start to incorporate those practices, or do you suggest that they actually make the effort to go and actually talk to people and learn from people who are actively involved within that spirituality?
Well, that is a $1 million question. That is one of the hardest ones to answer, solely because some people, when they think about voodoo, they're thinking about Santeria or Lakumbi, right? Or they're thinking about one of the ways that African spirituality works. Or they know what Santeria is, but they're actually thinking about conjure or hoodoo or something. There's so many different branches spiraled out of the slave trade coming over from West Africa, and people being implanted into everywhere from Central, the Caribbean, and parts of South and North America. And so different areas of West Africa where the slaves were taken from had slightly different ways of revering their ancestors and their deities. And so that's why there's so many offshoots. And then, of course, the fusion between whether they were English or Dutch or Portuguese or Spanish slavers, that influenced things. Whether they were Protestant or Catholic, that changed things too. The different Native American tribes that they were sometimes the slaves were living amongst, that changed things a little bit. So it's there's several different things out there that are called very. Some people don't really know which one is which. So reading would be a good idea to try to familiarize themselves with the difference between Santeria and Voodoo. That's a very logical thing I think most people should try to do. Absolutely, if you can, find somebody who's integral. Voodoo and its various different traditions that are similar to African cultures, bears, charlatans, and people that are full of shit.
Right.
You know, we have them in all our traditions, right? So diligence, just because someone may appear to be exotic, don't think that no, they're great. So a little research in the person, and ultimately, the tradition can only be passed on through. It really does. Conjuring hoodoo, a person can learn a little bit through some of the online. Like you mentioned, Star Cassis. She's one of those people that has. She's wonderful, by the way. I met her too, obviously, at the same time you guys did.
Yeah.
She's one of those people that has a sort of like an academy. I think it's called the Conjure Academy. Another guy I really like a lot, like Ryan Foxwood. You know, he has a way that he teaches people online as well. Because I know these people and I know how serious they take the work and how potent it is, and have been present at their ceremonies or spent a lot of time with a few of them. You know, I say that it's okay to go that route. It's voodoo and it's conjure, slightly different. Some of the other ones, voodoo, Santeria, that takes a community to make that tradition work. It takes drummers, dancers, clergy. And it takes a culture, and the community is the culture. So it might be the Hispanic culture keeping it alive in certain parts of America that people live in, or it's black folks from somewhere other part, whether they're Caribbean or they're indigenous Americans. It's hard to say. So it's like research it, read about it, try to find a ceremony you can attend if somebody is willing to let you come and see how it feels, because a lot of times, the voodoo ceremony can be kind of like off-putting to some people. It opens something up in them that they're not sure about because of the primality, even because if it's done in the basement of a house in Brooklyn, it doesn't matter. It's because of the drums and the movements, the dance, it evokes and it opens up things in people that sometimes makes them uncomfortable, or sometimes they go, oh wow, this is very sacred and beautiful and I want to learn more. So
right.
only hope that somebody does the research necessary to find themselves in the right place. And it's not too hard to figure that out. Research,
Right. I love research. I research everything, so.
That's awesome. And Goddess Tamara in the chat room had a question for you. She said, are there any covens who have revered other civil rights persons as gods or goddesses? I personally would like to see Miss Jane Pittman get that kind of status, because she was a second-generation American, I believe, so she wouldn't have a central ancestral home to exalt her status. But are we able to do something like that here? Because she has called on her in many a times when she needed strength. I believe she said, hold on, let me double check. When she needed strength in hard times, along with her grandmother. So she's just asking in general, do you know of anyone in that has done that with maybe Miss Pittman or anybody else like that?
Absolutely. That is what myself and a few people are trying to do with sort of completing the Underground Railroad spiritual tradition. There's various people who were people of inspiration, power that people relied upon, or they were connected to. Anyone like that. Yeah, there's a lot. Anyone can be revered in spirit, and if they had a reason, the best way, ultimately, one of the greatest ways a person could connect with them is to try to get dirt from their grave. Not always realistic at times, but it sure goes a long way to get dirt from the area of the people, and I don't see why not. It sounds like that's dignified work.
Right.
I've learned from, they call what she just asked me, like, that's the dignified work. That's the true work you've got to do because your heart is taking you that way, and that person needs to be remembered, so you do what you can to make sure that's the case. It's apply the regimen of working with the spirit and remembering them, photos, things that meant something to them, offerings. Yeah, you do it. You do it because that's the most integral work you do, to honor those people. Way to go.
Awesome.
Awesomeness.
You have your answer, Goddess Tamara.
So let me ask you a question, because you can really hear and feel the passion in your voice and your beliefs. And so I'm wondering, do you feel like you connect so strongly because you may have had an ancestor or ancestors who have gone through the Underground Railroad yourself? Or have helped the Underground Railroad way, way, way back then, or you could even be the reincarnation of one of those people. Do you think possibly you could have had ancestors along that route?
I don't think so, because I was born in Scotland, and then, you know, when you break down the Scottish spiritual world, they believe essentially, a lot of people, there's songs about it, that if you go anywhere in the world, you die, your spirit is transferred right back to Scotland again. That's kind of the crazy thing that it's called the Low Road. And I'm kind of kidding, but that is actual belief. But I know a lot about my family history, so I don't think so. We're pretty much pure Scots, in and true from the Highlands. That being said, since I'm not really sure where I stand on how much of us are reincarnated, so I guess it's possible. But what I think it is, for me, just is because Scotland, the tribes and the clans, we don't have a very happy legacy. You know, it's been nothing but rape and murder upon us for quite some time as well. The half of English, right? I mean, it's part of our culture. It's part of everything about us that we celebrate and or lament to. And it's either one of the battles we won or one of the wars we won against English, or got shafted by our own people, which is very much the case quite often. You know, it's the same as the Native American War. You know, while everybody appears to be all in good terms, people, you know, they double cross each other. So I think it's just the fact that you know, the Scottish genealogy that I am 100% filled with has a sort of a spot for the underdog. Persevering over that, and then, you know, because my father was definitely a big union guy, moved over here, a trade union, you know, kind of, and that sort of socialist view of justice for the average person and the working person, and the under, you know, I was raised that way, kind of, you know, from his influence. So it was easy for me to recognize the people that are inspirational, you know, tribal leaders, union leaders, revolutionaries, people that stand up against, you know, help move things forward for the betterment of everyone around. And, you know, of course, everybody's hero is someone else's, you know, terrorist, as they say. But regardless, you know, I think more so is, and then more so it's just because, you know, sometimes I wonder if there is a big hand of God that guides us, and the goddess that guides us places. Because, you know, for me to get to be where I am right now, it literally was a perfect storm of just complete coincidence and happenstance that I ended up in St. Catharines, ended up meeting the witches that I did, you know, and then just happened to be in a tradition that furthered men's mysteries and provided a place for the men to teach men's circles, which is what I helped do. And then ours was, you know, because of that the band started, and you know, and so it's such a huge intertwined network that I don't know the answer, you know, and maybe it keeps me up at night sometimes. And waking up early, I think, how the heck did this all happen? You know, I look back at it, I don't really have the answer, but
I can dig it.
It's foreign, you know. I am a foreigner in these traditions, you know, as a white person, you know. I'm not, you know. I remember a time when people like me were very rare in the African traditional religious communities. There was a lot, but there wasn't a lot, and that's the pre-internet era, you know. That's the part where I remember it was not common for me to be around places and be around certain people. And then in the last, you know, 12 to 13 years, there's just been this explosion of white people gravitating towards the various African religious practices. And there's lots of reasons for it, you know. Some of them are good and some of them are bad. Whenever I hear some people say, you know, white people shouldn't be involved in it, I think of the person who I learned from several years, who was an African prince, Prince Wadili from the Royal House of Rhodesia, was a good friend of mine and somebody that I learned a lot from. His point of view was, he thought it was glorious. The more people around the world of different colors revering the Orisha, why not? He would say.
Absolutely.
Why would Jesus only people in the Middle East pray to Jesus? No. If it is the will of the Orisha to be known by the world, then it's the will of the Orisha, and that's how he would say it. And you can't argue it because, you know, you look at Brazil on New Year's Eve, right? 1 million people go down to the ocean in Brazil on New Year's Eve to make offerings to Yamaya. They put up votive candles into the ocean. They all wear white, and there's 1 million of them that go along the waterfront on New Year's Eve. So at the same time, there's people all over the world that are thinking of Yamaya on that night because of that. So, you know, there is these spirits are actually becoming more global, and that can't be argued. But at the same time, there's a lot of times where I think, wow, I don't think this person's supposed to be here, or no, I'm not so sure they have the right respect. I know a lot of people, on Facebook alone, or people that I've met, they're white, that within 5 minutes of meeting or talking to them, I realize this person is a racist.
Right.
And why are they a racist? And because they talk to me a certain way, because I'm white, so they assume I'm cool with certain things being said, certain points of view, and I think, holy crap, how are you pretending to be involved in these traditions that are forged out of the Black experience, slavery, and horrible, horrible things done and atrocities to humanity, and these traditions only survived because of the hardships of what it was to survive as a legacy of America as a person of color. And here you are, profiting from it. And you're pretty much just a racist. It blows my mind, but it is what it is. It's interesting, but I do think that it is the will of the spirits, and that's why I like the Underground Railroad spirit world very much, because, again, like I say, it's very inclusive. And for that matter, so is the Orishas. I find the Orishas to be global, and they are very, very happy entities when more people of different colors honor them and revere them. It is a reality. The African religions are growing very, very powerful, and I think it's a beautiful thing.
Right. Well, it's part of I know Goddess Rhonda and I have discussed this many a times, and it's part of our belief system that if we believe in reincarnation, and we've all been many races and many times, as the time has gone by, this is just the skin that we're wearing right now, and the color, then it would explain why so many people are developing different relationships with different deities around the world. That people would say, oh, it's not your race to be doing whatever it is, but who are we to say what that person was before? So if you're going with that tenet, then it makes sense to me, when I met you, I didn't even think about it. I really didn't. I just saw you, and I was just like, it didn't occur to me. And it's like that with anybody else that I meet. I don't see their skin color that way. I don't think, oh, that person should not be doing whatever. It didn't occur to me. So, and that's just because of my belief system with it. I truly believe that. So who are we to say who can embrace what?
I appreciate that, and I agree with you. I think I can see at times I like to think I can see the substance of people when you meet.
I'll be honest with you. I did not see your color. I just saw you.
I didn't.
So sorry. I wasn't thinking anything about it. And I met so many of you guys, Cassis, all of you guys, and it didn't once occur to me, oh, your skin color and what are you doing with that? But all of you have told me and told us both in one form or another that you've been approached by people that are Black saying that, what are you doing, being whatever it is? And it didn't occur to us. It hasn't crossed our mind. So it's all good. It depends on a person's belief system.
It is. It's everyone's personal belief system. And I do believe we've been everything. I started, studying the Greek and Roman gods and goddesses. I felt very attached to that. Then I switched over to Hinduism, and I studied the Orishas. I study everybody because I honestly believe if you're going to be spiritually enlightened, color cannot be. Or you're just segregating yourself and limiting yourself. And we were supposed to have evolved beyond that. Now, to understand there's good people, basically there's good people and there's not so good people. Doesn't matter what color is. I respect everybody's spirituality, but I get very angry when someone tries to question my spirituality. So I don't allow anyone to question mine or the spirituality of the guests or anybody that I know, because they have no right to do that.
Yeah. And people have questioned us, and we've just basically said, never mind, step away. We're not accepting that. And it's all good. And honestly, that's based on our belief system. And because if you're thinking like that, that means that you yourself are denying all of your background, all of what you were in the past lifetimes, and saying, I'm only this on the outside right now. Seems very limiting to me. So it's all good.
Yeah, no, it's true. We live in an era now where we can tap into various parts of the world. I think when the people in West Africa, when they celebrate the Orishas, obviously very different than the New World. Example, so they serve the Orishas in Cuba or parts of Puerto Rico or the Caribbean, but it's a different form of honoring the Orishas. So it's very secretive because it had to survive. It's cultural because the white ruling class were the slavers, and that was the religion of the enslaved. And so it's veiled in mystery and initiation, and it's about culture. So it is about all that also in West Africa, but you see, because over there, those who still lived there, they were not the receiving end of slavery. They were on the selling end of it. And so they have a different outlook. Their Orishas being glorified by the world. It's a different thing. Much like a Hindu person, the religion. And so while it's cultural, it's not as fiercely protected. And I respect very much that people in this part of the continent, when I think it's healthy for them to be sort of skeptical of somebody that's not of their people or aren't prepared to at least entertain some of the hardships that it is to be a person of color in America. It's a tilted deck. It's not a fair playing field. We all know that. So that has to be accepted. And somebody has to recognize if they're not of the culture, they haven't had to endure some of the things people do. Then it's really hard to just say, I'm part of this spirituality, without really understanding the struggle that is what that spirituality represents. So it's different in different reasons. So and then there's just the cultural thing. I'm Scottish. I know my culture very well. There's all sorts of mysticism in Scottish culture. So if I met a guy who literally is from Africa who said, "Oh, I'm totally into all of the clans of Scotland. I love this. I love that. I love the gods," I'd be like, "Oh, right on. Okay, that's cool." And then in conversation, I would do my best to pass on a few things. Well, do you know about this celebration? Do you know why Scottish people do this or do that? I would be inclined to want to tell him, well, hey, man, if you're trying to connect to Scottish spirits, and and I know a few people that are, African Americans who are devoted to the Norse pantheon. And so I get them once in a while. Do you think that's weird? I go, no. Well, any weirder than me? I'm Witchdoctor Utu. What you're asking for, a guy? You're into serving the Norse gods. All the power to you, man. Absolutely, do it. You can't question it. But I think that's why some people, rightly so, are questioning at times the authenticity of certain white people when they want to serve and work with spirits and a spirituality that has been part of a culture in America that is still sort of not exactly getting a fair share in society that it deserves. So, it is what it is. It's a complicated situation.
Well, whenever someone asks me, and I've been asked that question before about, having certain races discuss certain things on the show, my attitude is, when you worship your ancestors, are you only worshiping your African American ancestors? Because I have an Irish grandfather on one side, I've got an Italian great grandmother on another side. Am I supposed to just ignore them, even though they're a part of my DNA? I should insult those ancestors and just worship the ones that happen to be wearing the skin that I happen to be in this incarnation? I think that you shame your ancestors of other colors if you leave them out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Spiritual court, right? That's your spiritual court. That's what a lot of people will do. You try to, to find out, well, what's the different nationalities, different backgrounds. So, of course, a lot of people of color in America have a lot of European ancestry in there and Native American ancestry, and then there's a lot of white people that look straight up white that are surprised to find out that, just a couple generations ago, we had black people in our family.
That's right.
Native person. So that is the conundrum that is North America, right? Because of the big, immigration melting pot of what this place became and just how much, we have in our DNA. Because people don't really expect to find out within their family. So absolutely honoring people if you have Irish in you and Italian all the way. I mean, that's just more buck, right? That's just more bang for the buck, as they say, as far as digging into, what's in our blood. The river of blood contains a lot of tributaries.
That's exactly right. Just exactly right.
Yeah.
Well, we're almost out of time, so we wanted to ask about your CDs that you have available.
Oh, right. Yes. Do you have CDs available, and where can they be bought? Please do tell us.
We have several CDs available. This day and age, we don't really sell a lot of CDs. We sell mostly on iTunes.
Oh, okay.
We sell CDs at places we perform, and once in a while people buy them. Anyone who wants to get our music, our hub is dragonritualdrummers.com. Pretty easy. www.dragonritualdrummers.com. You can find us on Facebook as well under Dragon Ritual Drummers. And you just go to iTunes and look up Dragon Ritual Drummers, and all the music we have uploaded to that system is there. We have some we have never put into iTunes that we only sell on CD, and some, things like that. But for the most part, our music is available at all the digital ways that any band can be found. We are about to, in the next week and a half, about to release a brand new digital single that's going on iTunes.
Cool.
And of all things, it would take another 2 hours, but it's a song called "The Riders of La Santa Muerte," and it's dedicated to the Mexican folk name of Santa Muerte, Saint Death. And our band has a slight connection to her and has for a long time, and we worked with her in various times, places, and basically it was time for us to revere her and give her a piece of music. And so we are about to release it. We're going to make a big noise about it when we do, within a week. And then that'll be the newest thing that we have. But you can find our music everywhere, and as far as where we're going to be, our website eventually will be updated as far as our shows. But we're going to be in Detroit next month at the Convocation. We're going to be at the Florida Pagan Gathering to facilitate the drumming around the fire there in May, and then at the end of May we're going to be in Georgia for this event called Caldera Fest, which is this huge Woodstock. Every pagan band basically that anyone's ever heard of is going to be at this.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wish I could get some of them down for Witch Fest. Go ahead. I'll get you there. I'm going to try to get you there.
And then we go to X-Fest again in June, and about a few days after this event in Georgia, we're in New Orleans. And we're going to be at Cleveland Pagan Pride in good old Cleveland, Ohio, which is down the road from us, and then we round it out in Salem again in the fall. So, people can find us. My profile on Facebook is wide open. It's an open profile, so Utu Witchdoctor is what it's under there. Easy to find me. I'm pretty open. If people ask me a question, I usually say give me a couple of days. I usually can try to answer it best I can. And, so.
Awesome.
You can find us there.
That's absolutely awesome. Do you have any, first of all, I didn't realize, Goddess Star, that we are dating ourselves now by saying CDs. So we're not going to say that anymore. We're just going to ask about digital downloads, because I can't believe CDs. I dated myself saying CDs now.
Well, I say it too.
No. Even younger people speak about some. Okay, I wouldn't say younger people. Okay. The rest of us, we say CDs, and then the 18 years and under, they kind of go to.
Yeah, they go with the downloads. It's all good.
We're not dating ourselves. It's all good.
Yeah, that was really fast.
Yeah.
That was really fast.
You can find, and our website has the links to them all. So, pretty much any social media site that we're on or something, you can find us from our website, or just look us up. People go to Instagram or go to Facebook or any of the social media sites. They type up Dragon Ritual Drummers. We're pretty much probably on there. Heck, we're even on LinkedIn. I don't know why, but we did it so no one else would take the name. So
There you go. That's awesome.
And right after the show, I'm going to be contacting you about Witch Fest. I keep pushing.
Yeah. Just so you know, Goddess Star is relentless. So just so that you know, she's going to just keep on asking you to give it and say yes. You might as well just say yes now and spare yourself.
I'm like, okay.
All right. Well, we're just about out of time, so we're going to go ahead and close out our circle. Hail and farewell, our lords and ladies of the elements and the directions. We thank you so much for your kind service, and release your energy back to its source with our blessings. Blessed be. And thank you so much, Witchdoctor Utu, for joining us here today, giving us so much valuable. I'm walking away with so much valuable information. I've been taking notes, and I'm just really excited about all of this, and I'm so grateful for your wisdom.
Yeah, absolutely.
It meant a lot, and I'm very honored to have been there. You guys were great questions, great energy, very unique media you're using between the YouTube and talking. I haven't been part of anything like this before, so kudos to that. You guys are doing a great job, and many blessings.
Thank
you.
I'll see you in New Orleans.
All right, we will. Merry meet, merry part, and merry meet, everyone. Thank you, guys.
Good night.
Night.
Bye-bye.